Okay, this is section 4.2 in your textbook, finding mentally and using an algorithm, percentages of numbers. So the first show you know in this section says use mental math to determine each of the following. So the first one says 350% of $10. So one smart student said that the first thing he would find would be 100%. Now 100% of $10, believe it or not, is $10. So if I multiply this by 3, I would get 300%, which would be $30. And since 100% is $10, then I also know, therefore, that 50% would be half of $10, which is $5. So 300% is 30 bucks, 50% is $5. So therefore, 350% is $35. Okay. Now, if you wanted to double check your answer, you could use a calculator. And what you would do is you say, well, 350% is 350 out of 100, which is 3 and 50 hundredths, which is 3 and 50 hundredths. So instead of putting 350%, I could put 3 and 50 hundredths. That's also 350% of means multiplication. And if I took my calculator and went 350% of $10, it would tell me it was also 35%. So right now we're just focusing on the mental math side of it. So being able to do it without a calculator is important. The second question says 0.1% of $5,000. Okay. So back in grade 7 when you learned mental math, you learned that 10%, if you wanted to get 10% of a number, you moved your decimal one place over. So 10% is $500. And if you asked what 1% was, you were told to move the decimal two places. So 1% would be $50. For this time, this is a tenth of a percent, which if you think about it, 10%, 1%, a tenth of a percent, we're just moving the decimal one spot each time. So really the rule of thumb for mental math is to get a tenth of a percent, you move your decimal 3 times. So a tenth of a percent would therefore be $5. So what's a tenth of a percent of $5,000? It would be $5. And the last one, what is 2 and a tenth percent of $20,000? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to think of this as being 2% and a tenth of a percent. So 2 and a tenth percent are both of these numbers. Since 1% is $200, and all I did was move the decimal 2 places to find 1%, then 2% would be double that, which would be $400. Since 1% is $200, then 2% would be that. And to find a tenth of a percent, I would actually move my decimal 3 times. So a tenth of a percent would be $20. So therefore, 2 and a tenth percent is $420. For the second show you know, this time you're given the percentage, and you're asked to find the percent of each number. Okay, so in this case, the first one, you don't have to use mental math for this one. So 160% is 160 out of 100, which is 1 and 60 hundredths, which if I want to think of it as a decimal is 1 and 60 hundredths. I can put the insignificant 0. It doesn't impact the algorithm at all. So 160% is really this number here. Of means multiplication. So if I was to take a calculator and go 1.60, or 160% of 53.27, the calculator would tell me it's $85 and 232 thousandths of a dollar, or 23.2 cents. So if I'm really thinking about money, I just want to think about 2 decimal places, which is approximately $85.23. I'm not going to round it up. In the second example, it asks for 3/4 of a percent of 135. So for this one, I don't want to use decimals. I want to actually change this to decimal 75%. Now, a lot of people see this as being the same thing as 75%, but you got to remember that's less than 1%, right? 0.75% is not 1%. It's a little bit less than 1%. So when I think about it like this, I just have to change this percentage to a actual decimal. So 0.75% as a fraction would be this. As an equivalent fraction, it would be this. And as a decimal, it would be tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. 0.0075. Multiply that by my 135. Oh, that's the wrong button. Right there. So 0.75% is that number. 0.75% of 135 is 1.0125. And your last question, which is 55 and 8/10. The first thing I'm going to do is think of that as a decimal. That's what it is there. Then think of it as a fraction. Then think of it as a better fraction. Then think of it as a decimal. So I went from this fraction to here, from here to here, from here to here, and then I thought of it as a decimal of 500. So 50, no, that's not right. 55 and 8/10% of 500 is 279. I don't think we're dealing with money here. We're just dealing with numbers. So 279 is your answer. Okay, hopefully those two show you notes helped you. The rest of the next video you watch are the answers to the questions. So use this as a guide to help you with the questions. And if you have any other questions, just simply ask.